Hi, I'm Willie with H5 Technology and welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. In the last Synology video, we set up our DS18. We took a look around, installed some apps. Now in this video, we are going to do a Synology to Synology replication to get our data off site. And we're going to go through everything. We're actually going to take our Synology, we're going to change the IP, put it in a different VLAN, make sure all of that is working, and then we are going to set up users and all that good stuff, and we are going to do some replication. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you this diagram. So here is the diagram that we're working off of. And right here is Willie's house, and the Synology is going to be, once we change the IP, 192.168.69.25, and Tim and I have a site-to-site VPN between our houses. So this represents Tim's house over here. Tim lives about 50 miles from me. It's less as the crow flies, but if you take the proper route, it's about 50 miles. And his Synology is 192.168.42.25. Now this is the Synology that he has at his house is the twin to the DS218. So this is where we're going to set up our replication back and forth. And then you can see here we have a site-to-site VPN between our networks. Now I have to change the IP address on my Synology to be in the 69 network because the way that I have everything set up, only that 69 network gets through the site-to-site VPN over to the 42 network. So that is what we're working off of right now. All right, so here is the Synology on my side, and you can see that the IP is 66.250. So we are going to log in, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over to Control Panel. We're going to go to Network. We're going to go to Network Interface. We are going to edit LAN 1, and we're going to make this 69.25, and you have to make sure that your gateway matches your network. So that's all good. So what's going to happen is once I click OK and it saves this, we're going to lose communication with the Synology temporarily until we get a switch port, which we're going to go ahead and we're going to open up PuTTY, and we're going to go into Edge Switch 1. And I'm having a little bit of a DNS lapse here at the moment, so we're going to do 1. Look it up. 66.6. When you live in a lab, sometimes things happen. Alright, so we're using VLAN 2, even though that says voice. That is what we're using here. So we're going to look at port, let's see, Synology right now is plugged into port 135. So what we're going to do is we are going to change port 5. We're going to give it a description, Synology, and what we're going to do is we're going to make the and now we should be able to do a write memory, and yes. And so now we changed our switch port settings. You can see now we can get a configuration or a connection to the new IP address of the Synology. And so now the Synology is on the proper network to be able to talk to This is the Synology over at Tim's side. And so we're logged in here. You can see we got the IP address change. It is static now. It says our disk station is working well. Under our packages, we do have Hyper Backup Vault, because we will set up backups going both ways. I went ahead and also installed the Hyper Backup and Hyper Backup Vault on the 42.25. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create users that are not our admin user. And we're going to make sure that they have permission to use Hyper Backup and that they have permission to the folder. So we're going to go into Control Panel. We're going to go to User. We're going to create a backup user. And we're just going to call it Backup. All right, next. And we'll leave it as a user. And so we're going to just click Next here. And we are going to make sure that this user has Hyper Backup Vault at least, so we can have that. We're going to leave the rest of this at default for now. You can really dial these settings in and really put a user just so you can so tightly control the users here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a shared folder. Now I already have a backup folder here because I am backing up some other things here, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a shared folder, and we're going to call it Office Files. And description, files from the office. That looks good here. Administrators can get to the recycle bin. We are not going to encrypt this shared folder yet. We're not going to enable the shared folder quota, any of those things at the moment. And now what we're going to do is we are going to give the backup user read-write access to the folder on this side. We're also going to give that same, we're going to create that same user over on Tim's side and make sure that that user has access both ways. So backup has it there. Now, I know what you're saying, but like, why are you creating the backup user here that has access to this? So I'm basically mirroring the Synologies on each side so that I don't have any issues. Now this backup account is a service account that's meant for backup only, and the authentication is not going to roll through. These Synologies are not connected like that, but I am doing it for symmetry so that if we have problems with troubleshooting, it will make it easier later on. All right, so backup has access to the Office files, and so we're going to hop over here to Tim's, the Synology on Tim's side, and we're going to go into the Control Panel, and we're going to create a backup user. And I am not going to send an email. My password is not inconsistent, just going to be a standard user. Tim's got a couple shares set up there already, and we're not going to give that user access to that. And so now we have the backup user here, so we're going to go over here and we're going to create, this is going to be the H5DS replication. So this will be the H5DS 218-1 replication. And I could go ahead and encrypt this shared folder so that Tim couldn't see anything inside this folder. We'll go ahead and do that. And we're not going to enable any quotas or anything like that. And right here, if you lose your encryption key, you are in trouble. So we are creating that. We are going to save the encryption key. We're just going to save that down to the computer, so don't lose that. Now we're going to give the backup user read write. Now the admin account is disabled on both of these Synologies, but you can see that T-Bear and WHOW are admins, so by default we have read write. Now I could lock him out of that backup folder, and you may want to do that. It just depends what your security footprint and your rules look like. I'm going to go ahead and save that. So now you can see we've got the encrypted folder there. And what we're going to do now is we're going to come back over to my Synology. We're going to create another shared folder, and we'll call this T-Bear replication. This will be T-Bear-SYN001 replication. We'll encrypt it. And no quotas. And yep, we're not going to lose the key. Should prompt us to download the key here shortly. So we're going to save that, and then I'll give the backup user that we created. So when we connect to these, the backup users that we created on each side, those are actually the accounts. So when the Synology asks for the credentials, it's when I'm looking at the remote site, it's not asking for my local credentials. It's asking for the credentials on the remote Synology that are a user that is allowed to back that up. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK there, and you can see now that we have the T-Bear replication, and we should be ready to start dropping things in folders and then setting up a replication. So on my side, I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to close this on the other side, and I am going to drop some files on my side. We're going to drop some files in. So here's the Office file share. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop some files in there. Okay, so now I've got 4 files in my Office files shared folder, and I want to replicate this over to the T-Bear site, right? So what I'm doing now, it's very convenient that I have a VPN connection, and if I had my choice, this is how we would do everything. We would do these backups over a VPN. It may slow it down a little bit with the overhead, but then we don't have to expose any ports. So if you want to see a video where we expose the ports to the internet, put that down in the comments, and we'll definitely create a video where instead of going over the VPN, we open all the ports on the firewall. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our packages, and we're going to go into Hyper Backup. And the very first thing that happens on the Hyper Backup when you open it is you get this wizard. And it asks you, what is your backup destination? You get all kinds of options. But for us, it is going to be a remote NAS device. So we're going to select that, and we're going to go to Next. And we're going to create a backup task. We're going to put the IP address of the remote Synology in. We'll go ahead and turn encryption on. Now, this is the username and password on the remote Synology. So we created that backup user, and you put the username and password in, and then when I click this shared folder, it's going to go out to that Synology, and it's going to grab the shared folders that are out there that this user has access to. Now, if the password's wrong, I should get an error here. This password should be right. So I'm going to drop this down. It went out. It looked to see what folders this user has access to. The only folder that the backup has access to on that Synology, if you remember correctly, is the H5DS replication. And we're going to let it create, we could create a subdirectory, whatever we wanted to call it. We're just going to go ahead and let it use the default. Now, if we had a lot of files and we had these Synologies side by side, we could do this and do an initial sync and then move it and then relink this setup to that task. If that's something else you'd like to see, please put that in the comments. If you'd like to see a huge sync and then take these offsite and do a sync, let me know. And we may do a relink anyway. So we've got everything here. We're going to go ahead and click Next. And it's going to ask us, what do we want to back up? So right now, I want to back up the Office file folder. And we're going to go next. It's going to ask us, what do we want to call the task? So this is going to be, we're going to call this H5 replication 1. Now, if we have notifications enabled, which we're going to get into that, we could get an email, and that will tell us whether these, it will tell us whether it failed, whether it was successful, whether it was partially successful, all of those things. We can compress the backup data, and we can also run the backup at a schedule. We can also do the integrity check on a schedule. So we're going to go ahead and leave those default for now. We could also enable client-side encryption. That folder is encrypted that we're backing up to, and so we're not going to do that, and we are also encrypting during the transfer, even though we're going over VPN. So we're going to click Next. Now, the backup rotation. What this does, and what I really like about Synology, is we've got tooltips all over. So the backup rotation will keep so many copies of the backup, and this is where we can get into making sure that our files are protected from ransomware and from accidental deletion and things like that. So we're going to do a backup rotation. We're not going to keep 256 versions. Now, also, it says apply the following method. So there's a smart recycle, which it does hourly, daily, monthly, weekly. This is just keep the earliest versions, and then there's a customized retention. So what we're going to do is we're just going to keep from the earliest versions, and we're going to keep 32 revisions of the backup. So we're going to go ahead and click Apply, and it's going to save the settings. And do we want to back up now? Sure. Let's back up now. So you can see that my target shows online. So if for some reason we were not able to connect to the remote Synology, we would have an error here. You can see that this is the IP address we're connecting to. Here's our username, the shared folder, the directory, the size. Has it done an integrity check? The integrity check has not been performed yet. You can see our backup is 1.31 megabytes, and the shared folder was Office files. There was no application here. So with the hyper backup, we can back up the configuration of the Synology. We can also back up applications that we're running. You can see up here in the system event, we got an event that said the H5 replication 1 was successful. So this is successful. So we can take a look at our version list. This is going to load the backup version information. And so if we look at this, we can click on the Backup Explorer, and it's going to take us and is going to show us the files within the backup. So here they are. So and if we had more days in here, and we're going to let this run for a few days, we'll add some files and then we'll circle back to this. But we could actually come in here to a point in time and actually back up or restore a specific file. So this is completed. And what we're going to do is we're going to hop over to Tim's side, and we're going to go into File Station. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a folder on Tim's side, and we're going to call this not Office Files. And we're not going to encrypt the folder. We're not going to do any of that. We're going to go ahead and apply it. We are going to not give, I guess we could give backup read write if we wanted to. Backup's not who we're going to be actually writing files to. It's going to be tbear or whow. Admin is disabled, but admin shows up there. We're just going to click OK. So then what we're going to do is go back to File Station. We're going to go back to not Office files. I'm going to upload some files to this directory. Through the magic of editing, these files are automatically uploaded. So you can see we've got 2 files out there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing. Now, we do have mail enabled on Tim's side. We're going to do a whole video on the notifications and the email setup. So you will see that I can show you what the email is going to look like when I get the notification of the backup completing. So what we're going to do is, now we've got our folder, the not Office files. We're going to come in here. We're going to go to Hyper Backup. And we're going to do the remote NAS. Okay, IP of the server 192.168.69.25. We'll do transfer encryption on. We're going to put our backup user credentials in there. Now this is where it's going to reach out to the Synology here. It's going to say, okay, what folders does the backup user have access to? You can see backup has access to Office files and tbear replication. Now we could take that Office files away. It is not needed, and if you want to lock it down, you can do that. We are going to leave the directory the same. And what folders do we want to replicate from Tim to Willie? Not Office files. And since we're doing ours at 3, we're going to take Tim's and go to 315. We're just going to offset it by 15 minutes because there should never be files big enough at this point where that 15 minutes is going to cause any issues. We'll enable the backup rotation. We'll do 32. I can hear the hard drives cranking away. I'm not sure what's going on because I don't know that I'm touching it yet. It may have actually been talking, doing some things in the background. And do we want to back up now? Yes, we do. You can see that our target is online and is processing the data. CPU kicked up a little bit there. Checking the source file size. Now, the backup should go like this. I mean, we're talking about a meg of data. And it's going so fast that the system doesn't really even have time to go ahead and update the screen. So it's 1 megabyte. The integrity check has not been performed yet. We can come in here. The backup statistics give us all kinds of useful information. So what our source size is, the source monitor. I mean, you can really manage your backups. Synology, for me, it's such a win-win situation with Synology in the backups because it just makes everything easy. It almost makes us lazy, but we still need to be remembering, to come in and look at our backups, restore from our backups, make sure the backups are actually happening properly. Even though Synology says that everything is good, you still want to be the administrator that checks the backups. Don't just let it go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to go over, see if I got that notification email, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we got an email from the Synology, and the subject is Synology Network Backup, tbear-syn001. So this right here is the task name, and it was successful on the Synology. And dear user, your backup task is now complete. It tells us where the destination was, the start date, and the duration. And then it says, sincerely, your Synology disk station. So that's it. It is really easy and really inexpensive to start doing your own disaster recovery, especially with Synology. Now, we're using these DS218 Pluses, but you can imagine how this scales to a much larger solution that Synology actually offers. It's perfect, and this is going to run. We're going to circle back on this. The next video is going to be the SSL certificates and how to do the the DNS with all that, and how to also set up that notification. So people have been asking for an email for a while about using a specific service for the email relay, so I'm going to show that to you as well. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe, please comment and share. Please follow me on Twitter and Instagram. If you need consulting for Synology, for any kind of networking, voice over IP security best practices, it doesn't have to be limited to what you see here. Reach out to us at h5llc.com. Fill out the contact form and somebody will get back with you as soon as possible. We do have a Discord channel and the link is down there. Charlie's our admin. He does an awesome job. Come by, say hi, ask your questions there. We do have an Amazon affiliate shop that's located down there. If you want to buy any of the products that you see here, you can absolutely feel free to do that through our store if you'd like. As always, I want to thank you for being here, and we'll see you in the next video.